so you may see that notification appear. I also want to encourage you to use the chat function in this meeting. I have some special guests hanging out with us who are monitoring the chat. I will be answering questions at the end of this session for folks who have specific questions, but please also feel free to put any questions right there in our chat. Folks are available to answer them as we go along. With that being said, here's the ground we're going to cover today. We're going to meet the advising team. I'll explain how advising works within the business program. We're going to review our business major requirements and your other degree requirements. We'll talk about the resources that are available to you and some opportunities to get involved. We will review your fall courses schedule, and we'll talk about the next steps that happen during your one-on-one advising meeting that many of you have already scheduled. And as I mentioned, we'll leave some time at the end for questions. I want to go ahead and introduce our very first special guest today. It's Dr. Amy Thomas, who's our senior lecturer and director of undergraduate programs. Dr. Thomas, I wonder if you could unmute yourself and say a few words to our participants.
I'd love to, Angela. Thank you. Thank you all for being with us this evening. We are so anxious to start working with you. We don't really even want to give you time to finish up last year and have your summer and all of that. We're just ready to work with you now. But we realize we must be patient. So it's so great to see so many of you checked in here this evening. As Angela mentioned, and on the screen, my name's Amy Thomas, and I'm director of your undergraduate programs. That means that I get the opportunity to work with all the different people you're going to meet and all of the different aspects of the program you're going to be involved with when you join us in the fall, from your classwork to your extracurricular activities and the excellent activities and fun things that we have for you to do outside the classroom as well. I can tell you to rest assured that your faculty are as excited as I am and Angela is to get started working with you. In fact, we're already working on some of the materials for your classes, like Business Savvy for those of you transferring in with us, Business Enterprise for those of you who are joining us in the first year, and of course, the Professional Development Series, whether you're in 1, 2, or 3, you'll connect with us in all of those classes in the fall. And I'm coming to you with a question from your faculty, and I'm going to ask that you feel free to drop your responses into the chat at any time. I'm going to be watching the chat in case I can help with questions, but also to collect this information from you. So here's your question. I hope it's not a hard one to get started in our time working together. But the question is, what brands or companies would you like to learn more about in your fall classes? What brands or companies would you like to learn more about in your fall classes? Feel free to drop those responses in the chat. We'd love to hear your suggestions of who you would like to learn more about. Thanks so much for giving me a chance to say hi. I'm going to mute myself and jump on the chat.
Thanks, Dr. Thomas. Here's your chance to have a hand in shaping some of the things that you're going to be learning about next semester. I'm seeing some good ideas coming in the chat already. Thanks for that. I also want to introduce you overall to our Center for Student Success team. Our Grossman Center for Student Success, that's our advising hub. You're going to get to know us really well. So for our first year students, you've received some email invitations to schedule meetings with us. So you'll be able to schedule a meeting with the folks listed here on this screen for that one-on-one advising meeting. For our transfer students, you've been contacted by either my colleague Lily or my colleague Megan. If you haven't had a chance to connect with them directly yet, I'll give you some contact information for them at the end, or reach out to our advising office at any time. I also want to highlight the fact that my colleague Amanda Anderson, who you see here on the screen, is one of my special guests here in the chat answering your questions. Please feel free to put some stumpers in there for Amanda. And my final special guest of today is one of our awesome GSB students who we've roped into joining us tonight and sharing some of her wisdom. Casey, will you go ahead and introduce yourself to the group?
Hi, everybody. I'm Casey Hutchko. I'm a rising senior at Grossman. I have a concentration in marketing and a theme in global business, and I also have a second major as statistics. Some of my favorite things about Grossman is our Center for Student Success. I was lucky enough to get a job there this summer, and I love all the ladies that work there. They're super helpful and can answer literally any question that you have. So, thank you.
You will hear from Casey some more as we go through the rest of this program, but I want to pivot to talking a little bit generally right now about our curriculum and the things that you'll be learning with us. And then I promise we're going to get to the good stuff, which is what you want to really know about, which is your fall schedule. So to set the stage for that, all of the students in our business program are earning the same overall degree. It's a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. And you may have heard, if you attended any of our admitted student visit events, you may have heard a little bit about how we move through this curriculum. For our first years joining us, we don't assume that you know anything yet about business. We're going to start you off on the ground floor with our core curriculum. It's designed to give you a little taste of every functional area of business, so that as you move through our curriculum and start to specialize in particular areas, and we'll talk about that, as you are making those choices about what you're going to specialize in, you've had the exposure that you need to make those decisions. For our transfer students, you may already have some business coursework under your belt. And so you'll work with our advisors to talk about what's the right time to sort of choose those specialty areas. So after you've moved through the core curriculum, we're going to ask you to do two things. We're going to ask you to choose a theme. Your options will be either entrepreneurship, global business, or sustainable business. And we're also going to ask you to choose a concentration area. And that's either accounting, business analytics, finance, or marketing. Your concentration area is really kind of the meat of what you're studying. They're really kind of equivalent to full majors in those areas elsewhere. And the themes are kind of these interdisciplinary lenses that you're looking at the rest of your business coursework through. And so you're able to pair any of these themes with any of the concentrations. You're allowed to pursue more than one theme and more than one concentration, but you got to have at least one of each. The most typical time to declare your theme and concentration is at the end of your sophomore year. But truthfully, you can declare at any stage of the game. And so if you know early on what you want to do, we'll talk about how to declare that together. And for transfer students, your path is different. And so you'll work closely, as I mentioned, one-on-one with an advisor to sort of talk about the right timeline for you. Here's a sneak peek of what our business core curriculum looks like. These are the 12 classes that all business students are required to take, regardless of what theme or concentration area that you're going to choose. So you'll notice there's some macro and micro econ mixed in there. There's a calculus class, and we'll talk about the sort of math trajectory in a moment. There's some stats, and then there's some really business specific things. One of the classes that Dr. Thomas was mentioning is Business Enterprise 1, which is the true kind of intro to our program. And that's where we're going to be capturing some of these great suggestions that you're making about companies that you might want to take a look at. We're also going to ask you to do some general education stuff. And so you won't be doing all business all the time at UVM. UVM requires that you get a broad base in a lot of different kinds of categories. So you'll do some other things around UVM. You'll take some classes in arts and humanities, or natural sciences, or global citizenship. You also have a degree audit that lives in your MyUVM portal that's going to help you track these requirements. So you don't have to remember all of this right now. There's a tracker that we'll talk about that lives in your new student portal that will really help out with this. I'm going to toss a question over to Casey real quick. Casey, would you mind sharing with the group sort of either what's been your favorite business class so far, or even any of the other classes you've taken around UVM?
This might be a hot take, but I love decision analysis. It's like super mathy and very statistics based, which is my second major. So that I don't know, I really liked it, but a lot of kids can find the material kind of difficult, but you will get through it. Yes. And if you like it, definitely think of like pursuing that as either a minor or another major.
I love that Casey said that. Decision analysis is one of those business core classes that you have seen, and she's right. It has a strong sort of quantitative foundation, and so it can be a tricky one, but Casey is like tackling that head on. I love it. We are, as we get you involved in these kinds of courses, we're not going to throw you to the wolves, okay? There are a lot of support resources around UVM that you can take advantage of that are just really going to help you make a good transition to college, as well as support you as you move through your coursework. I'm going to offer up this slideshow to participants later, and so you'll be able to see these things. You'll receive this as well as the recording will be posted online if you want access to this later on. But I want to highlight a few of these resources here. The first one, and of course I'm biased, is maybe your most important one. It's, as I mentioned, our Center for Student Success, which is our advising hub here in the Grossman School of Business. You're going to see a lot of us. You're going to know us. We are not a scary place. We always have candy in the office. Come and see us. In fact, one of the very first assignments that you have to do for your first professional development class is scheduling a meeting with your advisor. So we're going to get you in those first few weeks, whether you want to see us or not. Our faculty members always have appointments and office hours weekly that are available to you. It's a great way to get to know them and to go over some of the content from your courses. Highly encourage you to utilize those. There's also various kinds of academic supports like the Writing Center, the Tutoring Center, and things like that, as well as general wellness support around UVM, like our Counseling and Psychiatry Services Office or Student Health Services. And for folks who may need to connect with them, there's also the Student Accessibility Services Office. And those are the folks that you'll connect with if you require accommodations of any kind while you're at UVM. And so I highly encourage you to get connected with them early this summer so that as you launch into your fall semester, you'll be well prepared with any accommodations that you need. I'm also going to mention a handful of the tech platforms and tools that you'll be using during your time with us. One is a platform called Navigate. And again, for our first years who received that email about, hey, schedule a meeting with an advisor, you've done it. You did it through Navigate. That's the system that we use for scheduling those advising appointments. And you can also schedule appointments with other offices like the Tutoring Center through that. So you're going to use that a lot during your time at UVM. Our course management platform is called Brightspace. So for those of you coming from other institutions, you may have had other kinds of programs for this, or our high schoolers who are coming as first years, maybe you used things like PowerSchool or Canvas or things like that. Brightspace is what UVM uses. So that's the place where you're going to see your professors post homework assignments or the course syllabi. You'll have a hub for each of your classes within there. Typically, those Brightspace pages don't open up until about a week before classes start, or sometimes just a few days before classes start. So don't panic at all if you're looking and playing around in your My UVM portal and you don't see your classes in Brightspace just yet. Speaking of the portal, that's that My UVM website. That's where you're logging in with your new UVM credentials. It's a place where you're going to do almost everything administrative related here at UVM. So that's the place where you're going to view that degree audit that we were just talking about, that tracker that shows all of your requirements. It's the place where you can register for courses or adjust your course registration and really access almost any other kind of administrative function at UVM. Our own Center for Student Success website has a lot of different information that's useful for students. Suitable is the software and the application that you're going to be using for your professional development series classes. And it's the micro-credentialing and badging platform that you'll use within that for a program that we call Peaks. You're going to learn so much about this in the time to come. And lastly, I just want to mention that Outlook is the typical email client for UVM. So I'd recommend getting that installed on your phone, your laptop, all of that kind of good stuff. Make sure that you have handy access to your UVM email. There's also lots of other fun ways to engage around UVM and around GSB. There's going to be student clubs and organizations for you to get involved in. There's pitch and case competitions every semester. We'll talk about study abroad stuff as you move forward in the program. All kinds of connections to make with your fellow peers and with our alums who are always coming back for speaker and panel events. And you'll get involved in career coaching with our colleague Katie, who is our career and internship advisor. So lots ahead to get engaged in the extracurricular side of business with us in the first few weeks of the semester. Casey, I'm going to toss this back to you for a second. I wonder if you could tell folks a little bit about the ways you've gotten engaged around UVM or within GSB.
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely tried to do something with like each of my interests. So like freshman year, I got a job at Skinny Pancake just for something to do, get some extra money. And then freshman year, I also applied to our Grossman Student Advisory Committee to the Dean, which is called GSAC. And we kind of act as a liaison between the students and the faculty, and we make events and we kind of organize everything for the student body. So that's something that you guys can apply for and interview for probably late fall. But that's something I would definitely recommend looking into if you're kind of super excited about business and want to help out with anything like that. I've also done this year, I did Dance Force, which is just like a dance club. I went abroad last spring to New Zealand. That was awesome. 2 years ago, I did UVM Uproar, which is like a puppy raising club for service animals. That was awesome. I'm trying to see if I remember anything else, but yeah, try new things is definitely a key goal.
I must see if they'll let me join the puppy raising club. That sounds amazing. There's tons of different ways to get involved. I'm looking forward to chatting with all of you during these one-on-one meetings about some of the interests that you're coming in with. There's honestly kind of a little something for everybody. If there's some kind of interest that you have, there's bound to be a UVM club or activity that's related to it. Before we really move on to the reason you're here, which is talking about fall course stuff, I want to mention one other thing. This is the least glamorous thing we'll talk about today in today's presentation, but it's super important. It's a regulation that's called FERPA. FERPA is a federal education privacy policy that governs how we can share or not share information at the college level. So this is one of the ways and one of the things that's pretty different from high school moving into college. In high school, your families and your support systems had all kinds of access to your teachers, to your information, your academics. They really kind of had the full run of things when it came to your information. And that all comes to an end really at this point. So FERPA is the Federal Education Privacy Act that says we can't discuss anything about you or your academic record with anyone but you without your permission. We do offer some waivers to this that are available in our office starting at the start of the fall semester in cases where you might need to share some information with your family. But I encourage you to chat with your family members about this because this is a kind of a big change for everybody. We also ask that as we move forward into the one-on-one advising meetings, that's a meeting for you and your advisor because we're governed by this policy. And so we know families are interested and they want to make sure that you're on the right track, but we'll help you with that. We'll make sure that you're on the right track. And there's always opportunities to follow up with questions. If your families or your support systems have questions that you just didn't happen to think about during that session with us. I'm going to add one other caveat to this rule. And that like everybody on the call, you're going to get a chuckle about this, but I just need to say it. Alcohol and drug violations are not protected by FERPA. And so if you're involved in incidents on campus, your family does get notified for that. And so moms and dads, anybody listening on this call may be happy or not happy to hear that part. So that's enough about FERPA. Let's get to your fall schedule stuff. Again, for our transfer students, the most of what I'm about to say for fall schedule stuff really applies to our first year students. Each of our transfer students come in a totally different path, a different place in their previous studies. And that's why those one-on-one meetings with an advisor are so important. So for transfer students, again, many of you have already met with one of our advisors, but in the event that you have not, be reaching out or will be reaching out to you to make sure that you're on the right track for onboarding into the program. For our first years, this is what your first semester schedule is going to look like. Number one, you may be surprised to hear that you have a schedule in the first place. Our business program is a little bit structured in these first couple of semesters. And so we know what you need to do to really get on board with the program. And we've already put you in these courses. There's certainly opportunities to adjust your schedule, and that's what's going to happen at your one-on-one meeting with your advisor. But in the meantime, you don't need to panic because you have classes. What we've got you scheduled for is first that Business Enterprise 1 class, which again is kind of our true intro to the program and intro to business. You're also involved in an information technology class, which is going to give you exposure to sort of all the different business tech platforms that you're going to need, and in particular, a lot of Excel, so a lot of spreadsheet work, which maybe is not the most exciting thing that you've ever done, but certainly one of the most useful things that you're going to need for the remainder of your business classes. So you'll really appreciate having that knowledge early on. We've also placed you in a section of calculus. It's Math 1212. And now you're saying to yourself, wait, Angela, I am not ready for calculus, or I already took calculus, or something like that. We've done this preliminarily, okay? We know that folks are on a different trajectory with their math preparation, or maybe you already have credits. This is one of those places where we're going to do some adjusting together during those one-on-one meetings. And much of that adjusting is going to take place as a result of your math placement assessment. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Dr. Thomas also mentioned for our first years, you're scheduled for your very first professional development series class. That one is a 1-credit class, so that means it doesn't meet for the same amount of time as the other classes that you're involved in, but it's a great way to sort of get involved right away with thinking about sort of your own personal branding and how you're presenting yourself professionally in our program. The other thing that you're scheduled for is either macroeconomics or microeconomics. At UVM, you can take those classes in either order. They are not prerequisites of each other. So some of you are scheduled for macroecon, some are scheduled for microecon. In addition, you may find that you have another class on your schedule. Some of you may have been automatically registered for English 1001, which is a class that fulfills our university-wide writing requirement. Others of you may have a course on your schedule that is related to your learning community. And these are the kinds of extra courses where, again, we'll have opportunities to adjust. Or if you're not scheduled for one of those extra things and want to add a class, that will be something you'll be able to work with the advisor that you meet with during your one-on-one session. So here's what comes next as you prepare for those sessions. I mentioned that math placement assessment. So if you want to take the calc, you're required to take 1 semester of calc in our program. We want you to take this math placement assessment, and we want you to do it pretty honestly, because we don't want you to suffer in your first semester. We want you to be appropriately placed in the right math that's going to lay the foundation for whatever comes next for you. And so if you ended high school in pre-calc or something like that, this math placement assessment is probably going to show that you're ready then to take the next logical step, which is calc. For folks who maybe took a different path through math, maybe your assessment says that you need a little extra preparation instead. And in that case, what we're going to do during that one-on-one session is we're going to drop that calc class and add a class like pre-calc instead. Some of you may have taken the Calc AP exam, but you don't yet know your score or something like that. I want you to go ahead and take this math placement anyway, okay? Let's see where you're at. Let's make sure that you're on a solid math footing to get you to the next step. Information about the math placement assessment is available on your new student checklist. The link to it is also part of this slideshow, which you'll get later on. The registrar's office has asked us to share some of these additional course registration details. And this really, I'll just to highlight sort of the logistics. So for these sessions, UVM has placed an advising hold on your record right now. And this prevents you from making too many changes or going wild and dropping all your courses or something like that without working with an advisor. So what's going to happen on the day of your meeting is we're going to release that advising or orientation hold so that we can make schedule adjustments together. But then the day after, basically at midnight that night, the systems are going to automatically put that hold right back onto your record. And again, the reason for that is so that you have to check in with an advisor to make adjustments to your schedule. If you want to follow up with an advisor, let's say you want to add a different course or something like that after that one-on-one meeting, it is okay to do that. All you have to do is email the advisor that you met with, say, hey, I'm ready to add this class or drop this one or whatever. Your advisor will release that hold again for you so that you can make adjustments. And then on Monday, July 7th, those holds will go away entirely. So we sort of turn you loose in the system to make changes as you need to. So that's the logistics of how that will work. After this kind of first round of appointments, you'll be able to schedule additional appointments with us through that Navigate system. This is also how you'll schedule advising appointments with us once you're here on the ground at UVM during the first semester. So in terms of what to expect at your one-on-one session, we're going to, of course, talk about that fall schedule that you're in. And this is available already for you to view in your MyUVM portal. We're going to review that degree audit that I've mentioned a few times, if it's available. So for our incoming first years and our incoming transfer students, those degree audits are essentially built for you over the summer. For those of you who have some early one-on-one advising appointments, the degree audits may not be ready for you just yet. For folks who are on the later side with their meetings, you may have access to it already. But toward the end of the summer, that degree audit will be available in the system for you to check out. We'll explore that MyUVM portal together during that one-on-one advising meeting. And then, of course, we're going to answer questions because each of you will have some individual questions that are really specific to your own circumstances. And that's what we're here for. We'll talk about all of that stuff one-on-one. My colleague Amanda, as I mentioned, is in our chat today. Amanda also runs our GSB social media, and we would love to feature you there. So if you are interested in being featured on the Grossman Insta or on any of our social media platforms, you can scan the QR code there. We'll also have a link to the form for that spotlight as part of the presentation materials and available to you on those one-on-one meetings. We'd love to get to know you in that way, and we'd love for your classmates to be able to see you as well. So if you're interested, go ahead and fill that out for us. As we wind down today's session, I want to offer up some final tips, just moving forward as you are wrapping up your current stuff for our first years or really getting going on the summer already for our transfer students. I'm going to ask you to start making a habit of checking your UVM email. So I know you've accumulated lots of different email addresses already, either your previous institution or your personal emails, your Gmail accounts, whatever. And now this is another one for you to check in on. But I promise that it's worth it to stay on top of that over this summer. At some point, UVM is going to stop communicating with you through any kind of personal email, and they're going to send it only really to your UVM email. And so checking in regularly on that will help you capture anything that needs your action in a time-sensitive way. This is a tip specifically for business students like yourselves. I'm also going to ask you to consider packing some professional clothing. You'll have certain times where you'll have presentations or networking events that you'll be involved in. This is the time for you to bust out that nice button down that you have hanging out in your closet, or some nice pants or things like that. I don't need you to go out and buy anything fancy right now. We also have basically like a student clothing event where GSAC, one of our student clubs that Casey mentioned, offers up professional attire for really cheap. It's an amazing event, but it's worth having something in your bag already. If you've got some clothes like that, bring it along. You won't be sorry. And then lastly, we find that many of the questions that come up at this time are related to a few areas. One being residential life. You've got housing questions. The main contact for our Res Life folks is, as you see right there on the screen, it's reslife@uvm.edu. Reach out to them with any questions. The other kinds of questions that we get, financial aid related questions or tuition related questions. So that's our Student Financial Services Office. You see their email here, sfs@uvm.edu. And then finally, there's us here on the academic side of the house. So advising related questions or registration or other things like that. Please feel free to reach out to our advising office at gsbcss@uvm.edu. Casey, I'm going to toss this back to you one last time. Any last words of wisdom as a student that you can think of to share with our new incoming group?
I would definitely get a planner. If you don't have that, you need that. I don't know how you got through high school without one, honestly, because that's crazy. But I would definitely say that's like the most important thing. Check in with your advisor, like whenever you can. It's just good to have a relationship with your advisor. And then I'd also say the degree audit is extremely helpful. Like it's good to see what you've completed and what you have left. It's super organized and can kind of give you some peace of mind if you're feeling super overwhelmed with everything. So yeah.
I appreciate that. Time management is honestly one of the biggest lessons to be learned in these first few weeks of school, because it's not like high school anymore where you kind of had that, 8 to 2 or 9 to 3 or whatever schedule. You may have classes at different kinds of times and big chunks of times where you don't have classes, and you need to sort of balance times that you're studying, times that you're doing other stuff, enjoying time with friends, working out, getting involved in clubs. Lots of time management lessons to be learned. So yes, I'm going to echo the suggestion for a good planner. Our social media stuff is here. Go ahead and check out our Insta in particular if you haven't followed it. Amanda does a phenomenal job, and it really gives you a good sense of what's actually going on here in GSB. So look forward to some new posts this summer, and I look forward to seeing all of you on there as student spotlights. So submit those forms as
To do
well.
the student spotlight. I remember I went to this meeting and my mom was like, totally do that. So if your mom is telling you to do it, you should.
I think that's a good life lesson overall. Your mom's telling you to do it, you should. That is sort of the end of our formal presentation. But as I mentioned, I want to turn over some time to you for questions. So I'm going to ask my colleague Amanda, who's been helping here in the chat. Amanda, is there anything in the chat that we should talk about as a group? Any questions that haven't been answered yet?
No, I think you nailed it, Angela. We had one question about transferring credits in with dual enrollments. We've got a link in there. And then we also had a question about an online course that they saw on their schedule. And
Yeah.
most likely it was professional development series. So Professor Amy Thomas crushed that question too. Is anything else coming up for any of you? Feel free to throw it in the chat if you don't want to unmute yourself as well.
That's right. This time for the remainder, we're going to hang out here for a little bit. So if you've heard all that you need to hear, please feel free to go enjoy your evening and you can end this call. But otherwise, I'm going to be hanging tight for a minute. Please feel free to put stuff in the chat, or you can unmute yourself as well and ask questions. I
Looks
do
like-
see it. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that we just got one from Oscar. He's asking if we have the same advisor for all 4 years.
That is a great question. Thanks for bringing that up. So in the first 2 years of the program, you're going to be advised by one of my colleagues here in our Center for Student Success. Our whole office is designed to make sure you're making a good college transition, and that includes on the academic front as well. But once you move into your specialty areas, those theme and concentration areas, we want to connect you with a faculty advisor who's working in those areas so that you have professional guidance as well. So really first 2 years of the program, you'll work with one advisor, and then the other 2 years of the program, you'll work with a faculty member in your specialty area. Good question. I also see in the chat a question about reserved spots for transfer students in the professional development and enterprise courses for the first semester. That's another good question. So for transfer students, some of you are coming in with credits already that are going to allow you to be waived from the first or sometimes even the second professional development class. And so let's talk about that piece. If you haven't met already with an advisor about your particular placement in professional development, let's work on that piece. But for transfer students, basically, the short answer to almost every question is it depends, because each of you come in with such different circumstances, and so we'll get you exactly where you need to be, not only for the professional development series, but also when it comes to sort of onboarding classes like enterprise. I'm seeing some other good questions here in the chat about co-majoring. And so in the business school, what we ask you to do is spend a semester with us before you declare a co-major in another area or a dual degree in another area. We want to make sure you're on solid academic footing before you join something else. But that does not mean that we want to prevent you from taking a class in that particular area so you can start to get a taste. And so you've got some room in your schedule where rather than doing that kind of additional learning community class or something like that, we'll connect with you about potentially taking whatever the first class is in an area that you might be interested in co-majoring so that you can get that exposure. So plenty of opportunities to do that sort of thing. We just ask you to first get some exposure in your first semester, get your feet under you, academically speaking, and then you're ready to launch in your second semester. Another good question about, is there room in the schedule to add some classes? So that basic schedule that I outlined to you all gets you 13 credits. And a typical semester at UVM is actually about 15 to 16 credits. And so the short answer is yes. There is room to add an additional class that might be in another area of interest, or if you're transferring credits, for example, for that calc class or for macro or micro econ or things like that, there's an opportunity there. We'll drop you from the thing you're getting credit for, and you'll be able to add classes in that way. Please absolutely mention that to your advisor that you meet with during the one-on-one session, and they'll work with you to sort of customize your schedule. Have we missed questions from anyone else?
That's everything in the chat right now. Unless someone wants to change that.
That's right. We'll hang tight here for a few more minutes. But otherwise, I encourage you to go enjoy your evening. Here in Vermont, the high schools don't end typically until next week. And so I actually have a high school senior who is graduating next week as well. And I know that the senioritis is hitting extremely hard for all of you who are not quite done with school yet. So enjoy this time, soak it up while you can. A couple of other questions I'm seeing. Will there be a discussion in one-on-one about transfer college credits from high school? Absolutely. That's going to be one of the first questions your advisor is going to ask you. Hey, did you do any dual enrollment stuff? Did you do any AP stuff? And we'll talk about how that stuff will transfer. In most cases, what UVM is looking for is a score of 4 or 5 for the AP exams to give credit. There's a couple of exceptions that allow for a 3, but 4s or 5s for the majority of kinds of classes. And then for dual enrollment credits, which is like credits that you got through a local community college or university, the thing that UVM needs from you to give you those credits is the official transcript from the college or community college that you got the credits through. So we can't pull that from your high school transcript. You'll want to hop on the college's website to order your official transcript to be sent to UVM. But as long as you get a C or higher in those transfer classes, and again, this goes for our transfer students as well, typically UVM is going to give you some credit for that stuff. And then there's also a question about whether UVM participates in DECA, not in any formal capacity, but we do have some sort of corollaries to that. Case competitions being one of those opportunities that you're going to find operates a lot like some of the activities that you may have taken part in DECA. These are fantastic questions. I love them all. What else? What have we missed? A good question about, do I have to complete any forms for transferring those credits? You do not. So really just go ahead and submit a transcript to UVM. And as soon as UVM gets that transcript from that college or university that you got the credits through, we're going to automatically apply some credits to your record. There isn't any formal request process. And if you don't do it before your one-on-one advising meeting, that's okay. What you'll just want to do is mention to the advisor that you meet with and say, hey, I'm anticipating some credits. I took an English class through my local community college, or I took a psych class, or whatever the case may be. Go ahead and mention it to your advisor so they'll know what you're planning to come in with. I love the question about how do I find a job during my freshman year? UVM has 2 different kinds of on-campus employment opportunities. One are federal work-study positions. So when you have a work-study job on campus, that federal work-study means it's part of your financial aid package. So you would know if you have that kind of opportunity. So those will be one kind of job opportunity that's available on campus. And then there are other kinds of roles on campus that are not work-study positions. They're open to everybody. And usually within the first week of school, lots of campus offices will really start plastering all of those notices around. In addition, UVM uses a board called JobX to post all of those student employment positions. And so you probably, if you were to hop on there right now, you might not see much because many of the campus offices just haven't posted their fall positions yet. But I would say as we start to move into August, and certainly about a week before classes start, you're going to start to see lots of opportunities. I also want to mention that overall in Burlington, there are lots of nearby restaurants, cafes, shops, and things like that that would love to have you work with them. And so lots of opportunities to do stuff off campus as well. I feel like I have missed A question about my high school offered college in the schools. And so you took the college class through your high school. That is okay. That's still considered dual enrollment credit. So even if the class was offered at your high school, but you got the credit through some kind of community college or university, they still have a record of you. And so you still want that community college transcript, not your high school transcript. And I promise you that they have a transcript for you. So yes, you can still earn credit in that way. Y'all are absolutely crushing it with these questions. I love that you're thinking about this stuff early. Have we missed anything else that folks might be curious about? A question about who do I email that college transcript to? Good question. And actually the email address is super easy. It's called our transfer affairs office, and their email address is literally transfer@uvm.edu. And so they can take an electronic transcript, but just know that it's got to come straight from the other school. So when you make your transcript request, you want to put in that email as the recipient. Don't send it to yourself first. It's got to come right from the school. And Amanda has that for you there in the chat as well, that email address. Last call for any remaining questions or other stuff. And I know Dr. Thomas is keeping track if you've suggested any companies in the chat. Last call for companies as well. All right. You have all been an amazing audience today. We are so excited that you'll be joining us in the fall semester. Our advising office is open all summer long, so please be reaching out with questions. And our advising team really looks forward to meeting with you one-on-one for your appointments ahead. Thanks again for attending tonight's session. We'll send out these materials to you in the week ahead, and reach out if you have any questions.